I literally can't wait to have this conversation with you because it's you. And I know thoughts you have, but I don't actually think we've had this conversation. So for me, selfishly, I feel like there's a really cool opportunity for us to discuss what your
Yes.
hopes and dreams are for AI, what's been on your mind over this last year, because I think it has been almost a year, not quite, but kind of that generative AI has been more in our world. And and yeah, and of course we talk all the time about how to amplify the magic of humanity. So we have lots of conversation about this, but we don't have this exact one. So I want to give it to you. What are your hopes and dreams for AI?
My hopes and dreams are that it ignites and it inspires curiosity and a love of learning for absolutely all generations, and especially for those in formal education. When I think about my education experience, I was in a school whereby my job was to get straight A's, which meant, in my understanding, my job was to memorize, regurgitate, and forget. And when I think back at my journey of learning, there is so much that I never learned. Like, there's so much that I longed to learn, and I wish that I had learned, and I still long to learn. And one of my challenges was that I didn't know how, and that what was taught to me didn't always fit with my map of learning. And so my hope is that it can play a role in helping people understand how to learn, and then to be excited and inspired by that prospect and to do that.
And
Yeah.
and I love so the curiosity piece was a really beautiful way to start that. And I feel like you went down two paths. You said about all generations,
Mm-hmm.
and you said formal education, and I almost want to like separate them for a minute and go down both tracks. So for you, what does that look like for all generations? What are you really talking about? And yeah, then what are the hopes and dreams specifically for formal education?
Mm. Okay, I'm going to start with formal,
Go
because
for
actually it made me think of something.
it.
So when I had the privilege and the luxury of going to university, and I wanted to study astronomy. That's what I wanted to learn. I wanted to study astronomy and physics. And I took my first astronomy class, and I recognized that actually it wasn't that it wasn't for me. It was that I didn't know how to make it for me. I didn't know how to learn it in a way that worked for me. So I couldn't do that. I couldn't study that subject. And so I think in a formal context, my desire and hope is that we can better understand how we learn and how we process information. And we can find ways of being able to craft and create and tailor that experience so that I intrinsically build confidence about how to learn things in the world. And then I can replicate that again and again and again. And if I think about myself now, because that's the easiest example, right? For generations. And I think about what I would love for it to do now for me in my life. I think I would love to be almost in the same position that I could have, that a person at university might get to be in, or somebody who's in, secondary school or prep. Because I'll take those classes now. Like, I'll learn in that way now. I would love to learn how I learn now.
Mm, mm.
That would make me better at the work that we do. That would make me better in the next generations of my life. And also, I think if there are tools for us to better understand ourselves as humans, not to replace self-awareness, not to replace self-reflection, right? But tools for us to uncover and unearth insights about our strengths, about the things we're really curious about, then for myself in this generation, and as I grow and evolve, that will only benefit me more.
Mm-hmm. So then
Mm.
when we think about our work, about teachers
Mhm.
and them having this capacity to understand themselves better, heighten their self-awareness, harness the technologies to be able to have more self-awareness. If you could paint the picture of the dream,
Mhm.
you're looking into a classroom and it's dreamy and it's got this like blurred edges because it's so pretty. What do you see? Or what do you see more of if it's already, maybe it's not completely new, but what do you see more of, or what do you see?
So, hmm. So I see a dance. I think a dance already happens in a classroom, for example, right? If that's the context. I think a dance already happens where everyone in this space is kind of juggling, moving information, moving from one task to the next, interacting with themselves and others. And I see a more fluid dance. I see a dance where an educator gets to play the role not only as the expert, not only as someone who loves and is passionate about their discipline and their area of expertise, but is also someone who plays a role of a coach and of a facilitator, in dialogue with their pupils, whilst their pupils are in dialogue with them, and also in dialogue, right, with technology. I think the thing that I am very mindful of is that I hope that people do not look to AI, do not look to tech to replace human connection, because it won't. It will fail them in that regard. I also hope that people don't look to AI and technology as the oracle. I think there's this longing in humanity for there to be this oracle, to like there be a fountain of knowledge and of truth, right? And I think the fear that I hold in relationship to that is that we're mindful that we don't look external for the answers, that we don't look for something to give us direction and to give us the truth, that we're constantly coming back to ourselves, because that's what it means to be human, right? In addition to connection, in addition to relationships, one of the greatest parts of being human is that we have choice, we have self-reflection, we have insight, we can learn again and again and again for ourselves. And so in a classroom, what that looks like is having relationships between people that then again places the ownership, the responsibility, the autonomy, the understanding, the self-reflection on the student, not on the technology. And of course, if I'm in that classroom and I'm 10 years old, I want to be learning things that are so cool. And I want to be learning them in a way that really excites me. And a lot of that will be the person, or maybe there's persons in the room who are filled with passion and love and mastery of their subject. And a lot of that will be tools and techniques and tech. And those two things will need to dance together, and I will need to be part of that dance.
I heard this incredible story the other day from one of the people that we work with, and it was a story that was told about another person that person works with, so not a direct story, but it was around each child in the classroom having a pin, and when the lesson was not serving them, or they were ready for play, or they were bored, or they didn't want to be there anymore, they could go up to the board and put their pin in the board, and once there were 5, then the class was over and the kids could go do what they wanted to do. And the responsibility was on the teacher to obviously keep their attention. And what I'm hearing and what you're saying is this dance and dialogue with the technology gives us just more opportunity to create a new type of classroom, a new type of learning experience. Like the possibility wings have just flapped open.
And that I don't have to be, if I'm putting myself in the role of a teacher, I don't have to be good at everything. Like that's got to be exhausting, right? I have to be good at absolutely everything, and like really good. at absolutely everything.
Not
That's
average.
no, that's hard.
Yeah.
Because even in my role, which is not an educator, right? I feel like I have to be really good at absolutely everything, and I'm not. And how about I be really good at the things that I'm really good at? And how about I use technology in order to learn how to be better at things that I'm not better at? And how about I use technology to also do some of the stuff that actually isn't where my genius exists?
So speaking of that and thinking about the question of how we amplify our humanity, how we, in the face of these changes, reconnect with ourselves on a deeper level and harness our innate skills and qualities. What are some of the things that we can do to amplify our humanity?
So we're going to have to learn how to use technology, aren't we? Like we're going to have to take classes, we're going to have to watch videos, we're going to have to do whatever we need to do, right? Sure, people are going to design it in an intuitive fashion, but we're going to have to learn and we're going to have to study. And I think to the extent that we place attention on needing to get really good at using it, we need to place attention at getting really good on connection, relationships, understanding ourselves, and also kind of being ourselves. I wish that there had been a class that just taught me how to manage my mind as a young person, right? Like when we talk about coaching on our courses, we talk about how do people see the world, right? How does their lens inform how does their perspective inform their actions? I never learned how to navigate my perspective about a situation when I was a young kid. So I think there's skills and tools. Of course, I come from a coaching perspective, as do you. These skills of coaching, these tools of coaching, helping people understand that there's a way of being and interacting with another person that actually does amplify their humanity. And that way of being and those skills lean much more towards the end of the spectrum of coaching, right? And helping other people to find their own answers than the end of the spectrum of consultancy, which is also in some cases where technology is going to be sitting, right? If we look at technology as the oracle, then it's the consultant. That doesn't place a lot of ownership on us, and it also doesn't help us unearth our own answers.
So in light of this conversation and even before having it, like what are you curious about? What are you like reading about? What are you thinking about when it comes to this topic that I haven't asked you about or that you just want to bring into the mix?
I'm delighted that more and more people are having the conversations about social and emotional like intelligence and well-being. I'm delighted that education is looking to resilience and autonomy and well-being and has been for some time, but is really amplifying that. And I think what I am consistently more and more curious about is how we complicate being human and how it can be more simple. And actually how technology we think is going to simplify things, but is actually going to complicate things as well. And I'm curious about how if we kind of like bring it back to basics, what does it mean to be human? And can we start there in what we're talking about, in what we're teaching? And I'll leave it there because it's still something that I'm playing around in my mind. But there's a simplicity piece, like in the face of so many things changing, right? Like, how can we come back to kind of the core, which is connection, relationships, learning, growth, I won't add more because then it'll complicate things.
Being, awareness, all complicated.
Oh my gosh, so many words.
Throw it all in there. Well, thank you for having this conversation with me. Thank you for being my partner. And yeah, I think the conference is going to be really exciting, and I'm so excited to see your workshop and everything you're going to put together.
Thank you. It's going to be a great conference.